Good morning. Welcome to SFI Live with me, Jay Evans, your host and presenter for today. I'm here to make sure we get all the answers from our guests and support you. So first things first, thank you to those who are already chatting in the chat room. That's there to be used. So please do put any questions, comments you're going to do in there. This month's SFI Live is focused solely on first-time buyers and the issues they're facing and the current market instability. So it's going to be quite a deep discussion, I think, with a stellar panel missing just one. We're having a slight technical issue, which is why we're a little bit late going live, in that Tony can't seem to get connected. So he will join us in just a second. But before he does, let's go around the room and just say hello to the faces you can see on the screen. Holly, do you want to do your introduction first?
Yeah, I'm a bit rusty on this. I haven't done an introduction in ages. I'm Holly. I'm the intermediary team manager and I look after our telephone team. So that is our telephone-based BDMs and our intermediary support team. I've been at Saffron for 8 years now. So yeah, but we're in the mortgage team for 7.
For those of you who are veteran watchers of SFI Live, you know Holly used to be one of our regular panelists and she went trundling off to have a little baby and she's back with us now. So welcome back, Holly. It's nice to have you back on the team. And while we wait for Tony, I might as well just introduce you, Steph. Steph Daley, welcome to SFI Live for the first time. Why don't you do a little introduction to the audience for us?
Perfect. Thank you. Hi. Yes, Steph Daley. I am Director of Partnerships at Alexander Hall Mortgage Advisors. So we are a sort of mainly London-based mortgage firm, but of course we do mortgages for the whole of the UK. We have about 50 mortgage advisors with us. So I have been a broker myself for just over 10 years and then a team leader of the groups of advisors, and now I look after all of our external partnerships and making sure all of our lender relationships are as strong as possible. Make sure all of our advisors know what we're doing. That's me, and I'm actually about to go off on my maternity leave in a couple of months as well. So I'll be
I didn't want to comment when you just walked over to your kitchen, but
Congratulations.
Okay, let's see if we can hear him because he's had to put a headset on, which I'm sure he's not happy about. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay!
Here we go. Yay,
Well, I'm glad you can hear me now because you shouldn't have heard me a few minutes ago because it wasn't PC. I'll tell you that. It's,
we could read your mouthing words,
yeah.
Tony.
Brand new laptop and none of the sound functions work on this out of the box laptop. So yeah, I've got another drive to Saffron to sort it out, which is really helpful. But sorry, I'm late.
Well, welcome. Let's do your introduction as we were doing introductions, so it's really good timing.
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Hall. I'm head of business development here at Saffron. My role is to basically ensure that our mortgage intermediary partners get the products and support and service that they deserve.
Welcome, Tony. Welcome, everyone. So that's your panel, but this is really kind of over to you, our audience. We want this to be as interactive as possible. We've got some questions we're going to put to the panel. We're going to discuss them. We're going to have that conversation. We're really interested in your comments, your questions, any that are directly to the Saffron team in respect of Steph, we will save to the very end. Steph's with us for the first 45 minutes. So we'll save to the very end so that Steph's not involved in our conversations about our particular products. So Jan, we will get to you towards the end. And those of you that need your CPD certificate, stay till the end because about 45 to 50 minutes past 11, they will automatically appear in that chat room for you to download. So you will need to stay with us to grab those. So I'm not going to waste any more time. That's enough time for chatting. Let's move on to the topic itself. So we're here to talk about first-time buyers. I know we've covered this so many times over the years, but with the market being as it is and the volatility we've had over the last few years, I think we need to keep addressing it. We need to keep looking at it. And so I think this is our opportunity to discuss innovations, things that people have seen in the market, things we're doing for first-time buyers across the entire sector. But first of all, let's just discuss what the issues are. Tony, I'm going to come to you first. What are the biggest issues facing first-time buyers? I know this is an open question. There's so many of them. There's lots of caveats to each one. But what is the issue with first-time buyers that brokers are seeing the most at the moment, or certainly you guys are seeing?
Well, I will give my views, and hopefully Steph will be nodding. But it's always good to have a contrary view. If not, to me, it's a number of things. One is affordability. Yeah, it's just a struggle now for with the cost of living and the affordability models of all lenders having to reflect that appropriate cost of living. It is making it harder for any borrowers, and particularly first-time borrowers, to borrow the amount that they need to buy the house. Okay, so that's point one. Point two is the cost of buying a new house is expensive. We have seen some flattening, but we don't think we've seen reductions really. I think there are some regional ones, but so it's expensive to buy a house. And probably the biggest thing, there's just not enough houses out there. We don't build enough, so there's not enough supply. Therefore, the demand is constricted, and that drives up prices, and that drives up everything else. So I think it's a combination of those three issues, but probably the biggest ones are affordability. It is not as easy to get the mortgage that you need. Hence why we're now starting to see our industry innovate beyond what's been seen as 95%, with the move of Skipton, which is a great step forward and a good kick up the bottom for all of us to think about things differently.
Steph, you were nodding. That's good. Anything
That's
to add?
start.
That's a really good start.
So definitely with the affordability, because I think generally in terms of lenders and lender criteria, we speak a lot about sort of the loan to income multiples and the headline loan to income multiples which are available. And typically what we've seen over the past period of time is those higher income multiples only being available to those who are higher earners or have large amounts of deposits. So it's your first time buyers who are then really missing out on getting the ability to take advantage of those high loan to income multiples. I know there are certain lenders who of course have specific products with the high loan to income just for first time buyers. That's a massive issue. And of course, actually saving the deposit in the first place. So where we saw, we're still seeing the after effects of sort of the September, October post mini budget and the product pools which happened then, especially at the higher loan to value side of the market. So 95% loan to value products, there's just nowhere near as many of them available as there were sort of this time last year. Also restricted on even those lenders that do have 95% loan to value products. You're then slightly restricted on the property types. So certainly, as I say, sort of as a primarily London-based firm, flats is what most of our first-time buyers are looking to buy, and there's massive restrictions there. We've then also got restrictions on sort of EWS1 and the Building Safety Acts and the cladding, which I won't get started on. That seems to have affected the first-time buyer market a lot more than what it has the second steppers and the home movers, for example. So inability to be able to save for the deposit as well because of the increase in rents, which we've also seen over the past period of time. So you're mixing all of those things together. You've got the affordability, so they can't borrow as much. They're not in a position to be able to save the deposit as well as potentially their predecessors because they're paying so much more on rent. And when they do, if they're wanting to get those higher income multiples, it's just the deposit requirements are just so much higher. But 100% what Tony said, there's just not enough properties being built. So governments are missing building targets. I don't think they've ever hit.
Or removing the building targets that they've currently done. So they've not got anything.
1979 was the last year it was hit.
The year I was born. There you go. Yeah. But that's something you tapped into there, Steph, leads quite nicely onto the next question. That's like saving for the deposit in itself and obviously affordability. But that's the knock-on effect of that, guys, across the board here, is that we're seeing after first-time buyers, they're much older age than I would have considered when I started out. Most of my friends were on the property ladder by the time they were 25, 27. What's the average age of a first-time buyer now? Does anybody know?
I think it was... From the statistics of 21 to 22, for the average first-time buyer outside of London was 33.4, according to money.co.uk. So yeah, it's a lot, a lot older now. And also,
we've got a lot more extended mortgage terms now. So there was a news story just yesterday, the growth in 35-year mortgages. So you're going to be paying your mortgage off into your pension age, surely.
Well, we talk about lending into retirement mortgages, and that's a first-time buyer now. You got a first-time buyer taking.
It's true.
Yeah, you got a first-time buyer taking up to a 40-year term. to take them into potential retirement at the end of it. If they so, that's the
it kind of
challenge
depends
of
how
our
you look at it, doesn't it?
situation.
Because they keep extending the retirement age. I mean, I was supposed to retire at 65 when I started my career, and I was retiring at 69. When I don't know what happened there. So actually, some of these first-time buyers might be working until they're 95 if it carries on the way it's going.
It could be.
So, but I think you said again about another question that's not in my list of questions, but I just want to pick on is the increase in rents. Obviously, with the rates going up, everything. Buy-to-let landlords are going to have to put their rents up. It's financially necessary for a lot of them, especially smaller ones. So it's just turbulence all over for first-time buyers, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think we spend a lot of time focusing on, or the government seems to spend a lot of time focusing on trying to get more tax and get more money out of sort of your buy-to-let landlords, and they have been under quite a lot of pressure over the past period of time. And sort of surprise, that's had a knock-on effect of they're now increasing the rent that they need to charge because they need to cover that income tax, and they need to cover sort of all the additional outgoings which they have, and that's then putting downward pressure on first-time buyers. So it's sort of, I can see what was trying to be achieved, but we need that private rental market as well. That there are, I mean, if you're a new couple, for example, you're probably not going to buy a property together without having lived together first, or if you are moving to a new area. So that private rental market is so important that it's affordable for first-time buyers because they need the opportunity to be able to live in that area or live together, and whilst being able to save for the deposit.
So true. So there's only one thing we can really do then, isn't there? If this market stays as it is, we've got to innovate. We've got to come up with new ideas. Tony, I don't know if you've seen anything. Just interestingly, Max just put something in the chat room that I find quite interesting, that Japanese mortgages are handed down to the next generation, like similar to student loans. I mean, that's something that someone else is doing in another territory. But what's the innovation been like in this country, Tony? Have you seen anything that stands out and you think, well, that's we mentioned, and we will get to your question, Max, with regards to Skipson's 100% mortgage. But we've heard about that. Is there anything else you've seen that you think, oh, that's bang on, that's targeting exactly what we need to target for first-time buyers?
Yeah, it has. Look, and it's not a new thing. Building societies like the Bath Building Society have been doing parental guarantee mortgage schemes for years, which were innovative. We're talking the early noughties, if not even sooner than that, and they were really supporting that market then. So it's not new, but bringing it up to speed outside of Skipson's exercise, which we can discuss in a bit. You've got lenders now considering the elements to help things easier. So Leeds Building Society have changed their credit search approach to include subscription payments as a plus. So if you're subscribing to Netflix or Amazon Prime or even your phone contracts, if you can demonstrate that consistency of payment, that's actually benefiting your credit score. That's working enhanced. I think they're working with Experian to try and extrapolate that data. So that's really good. Leeds are also tweaking their affordability to recognise people who are buying energy efficient homes, which a lot of first time buyers will, and they're tweaking their utility cost in their assessment to that effect, which means you can technically borrow, not technically, you physically can borrow more money because they're not taking as much out of that. So there's two examples of how lenders are looking to innovate, not necessarily at product level, but within the whole construct of how to tackle the bigger issue, which is affordability. There's plenty of products out there, it's just affording them.
Steph, you were nodding away there. Anything else you've seen? Or
yeah, I mean, I think being able to take a look at EPC ratings of properties. So, of course, we have lenders now offering green products, so slightly marginally cheaper rates for those EPCs, A's and B's, for example. But I haven't seen a huge amount of innovation in terms of, other than sort of leads, lenders actually being able to use that data because, right, we understand that your energy bills are now going to be lower, so let's factor that in. Let's not just use the standardised ONS figures, which a lot of lenders seem to have just gone down the route of ONS because it makes for a quicker application. So from a broker's perspective, it is easier. It's slightly easier to move through. But in terms of doing the right thing for the client and actually being able to holistically look at a first-time buyer as an individual, I think we need to look at what other tech we can use. So linking with Experian, being able to pull up the property data, sort of home track information, EPC ratings, cost of council tax, etc., instead of just using straightforward ONS, which is just sort of blanket affordability struggles for everybody.
Mm-hmm. While we stick with innovations, let's address Max's question. I don't know if any of you guys know. Do you know if Skipton have actually approved any of the 100% low mortgages yet? And is it a big flag waving exercise for PR? Well, you have to say they did blanket the entire media with this story, and fair play to them. But do we know? Does anybody know? Do you know if it's been a viable product?
Well, I can only go. Steph will probably know if she's put clients that way, but it was restrictive in a lot of areas. But look, they've done it. It's available. It's for the right person, and this is what it's always about. It's got to be. You can say anything, but it's got to meet and fit the rules and be for the right people. So, but boy, has that raised awareness of market and an issue that brokers have been talking about for years around the inequality of I'm paying loads of rent, but I can't get a mortgage because I can't save a deposit, and you won't use that in my favour. So I've got nothing but respect for Skipton and what they've done. Obviously, it is a bit of a PR exercise because actually getting that mortgage is limited to certain scenarios, but it's still there. It's still an option, and it's making the rest of us think about what we do, and that's what this market needs.
And as a PR person, I have to say that is the best way of raising the issue: is throw a story out that disrupts the media, and all of a sudden everyone stands up and pays attention. So I bow down to the Skipton PR team, and I same as you. I think Steph, any comment on that before we move on, or Holly?
Well, from the advisor's perspective, it has encouraged a lot more conversation. So for people who perhaps thought they didn't have anywhere near close to the deposit that they needed, so it's at least opened the conversation as to, is it an option for me? And even if that particular Skipton product isn't an option, we can at least then talk about the guarantor options, like the joint borrower sole proprietors, etc. So it's really helped to open up more of a conversation. In terms of Max's question, I don't know the answer. As I say, we've had lots of conversations. We haven't had any mortgage offers issued on it yet.
Let's just say I will do some digging. So those of you who want to watch this on demand on the Saffron Fringe Reviews YouTube channel, I will put a comment underneath there and let you know the outcome, because I'll speak to the team and I'll find out. So there we go. Max, I will find out the answers. If anyone's interested, let us know. Do pop your questions in the chat room. We are going to answer them. Holly, I'm going to come to you because weirdly, Steph just plugged something I wanted to ask you. About the support of mum and dad, the bank of mum and dad, obviously, helping with the deposit, but there's also products that assist them. And as Steph very kindly mentioned, JBSP. Do you want to just talk about, for any brokers that aren't aware of the product, what that is and how that benefits a first-time buyer?
Yeah, so I mean, the joint borrower sole proprietor, especially our product, I mean, we've had it for a number of years now, and it's specifically designed for first-time buyers that are struggling to meet affordability but have a close family member that could go onto the mortgage just to help boost affordability. The great thing with our JBSP product as well is the term isn't determined by the age of the supporter. It's actually by the first-time buyers, so they can have up to a 40-year term, which again helps stretch out affordability. So yeah, and it's just another way to help first-time buyers get onto the mortgage ladder.
Just picking that apart a little bit more, because you said close family member. I think this is really important because I didn't know this. I assumed that all JBSP products were just mum and dad or very, very close. But do you want to maybe just say that it's not just mum? So if mum and dad aren't in a financial position, you can use other people within your family to support as well, can't you?
Yep, so you could use aunties, uncles, grandma, granddad. You could use step parents, adoptive parents as well. You can use brothers, sisters, etc. So there's a real sort of wider list that you can use with our JBSP mortgage. And there is not just I know as we talk about the whole market, there is other lenders that do it as well. But first-time buyers we specifically focus on with the JBSP offering.
And Jay, just to add to that point from Holly about our flexibility, I think we've recently done one for a godparent.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
was the JBSP supporter. So that's again, that's particular circumstances. It's all got to align, but that's the flexibility of, we'll say family, and Holly's reeled off the list, but we will go beyond that in the right scenario. And it was a godparent that we were comfortable with.
Just for market perspective, Steph, and other JBSPs and products like it, are there other products similar to JBSPs that brokers might not know about? And obviously anything you've seen that's innovative in that nature?
Yeah, so the joint borrower sole proprietor is really good, and it's one of the most popular ones in terms of family help that we tend to advise on. Of course, with the person who is also going on the mortgage but not on the title deeds needs to understand the risks that are therefore involved in that. The whole joint borrower sole proprietor proposition, there are some lenders who are looking to make slightly change to that, like income boosters propositions, and sort of from like the generation homes and the new tech lenders looking to sort of bring that joint borrower sole proprietor proposition and change it slightly. But I think it works really well, and it's sort of a shame, but from the advisor side, it's good. Not many people know a huge amount about it, and it's definitely an advised sale. So if people were looking online for joint borrower sole proprietor, I mean, just that term itself is sort of a jargon loaded term. So it's definitely an advised product, and it's something that, as I say, when we are having conversations with people that maybe have come to us because they've seen about this skips in mortgage, 100% mortgage, is, have you thought about this? Have you thought about joint borrower sole proprietor, etc.? Just opens up a lot more conversations.
Is it worth, just while we're in this section, to talk about, actually, yeah, let's just go, sorry, Marianne's putting a question. I hope I've said that right, Marianne. That's how you pronounce your name. So just, Holly, just to pick up on your bit, would you go to by the age of the first-time buyer and not the supporter? So if the parent's 50 and their first-time buyer is 25, will you still do a 40-year term?
Yeah, exactly. So we can offer, because a 40-year term to a 25-year-old if the parent that's helping them is 50. For us, our criteria is that the supporter can be no older than 70 at the time of application. And the reason that we go by the age of the first-time buyers is because what we're looking at is that within the next 5 to 10 years, as their affordability and income increases, then they can look to remortgage and remove the supporter. So that's why we've done it. We focus more on the first-time buyer to stretch that affordability by giving them up to a 40-year term.
Stephanie, you see Brian's comment in there, but I think, from an industry-wide perspective, he's put the problem is so variable as to the terms from lender to lender, and the stamp duty issue is totally not understood by conveyancers. It is issues, and it is for brokers. There's so much out there. It's just knowing where to go and what the criteria for each lender is. It's just really a learning curve, isn't it? And trying to find the products that are right for your client.
100% agreed, which is why it's so important that whoever is looking for joint borrower sole proprietor is speaking to somebody who has access to sort of all the lenders, who is experienced in it, understands it. I mean, it's not just necessarily the solicitors in terms of the title ownership. It's also the independent legal advice that the non-owner has to go down, sort of how much work is involved in that. Can it be the same solicitor? Does it need to be a different solicitor? So just having experience in that area, essentially it just comes from the more conversations that you're having with lenders and solicitors, and the more times you do the deal, as I suppose with clients, the more familiar you get, as with anything.
Okay, let's move on. Steph, you have used the word government a few times, so we're not going to get political here, but there have been schemes that helped first-time buyers, and there have not. And there have been schemes we've had during the pandemic, such as stamp duty holidays, things to keep the market buoyant and the market moving. Now, the one thing that first-time buyers had was Help to Buy scheme. Now, that's by the wayside. Are we missing that? Is that a mistake on the government's basis? Is that going to is that really hurting, not having that availability of that for first-time buyers? Is that going to really impact? And is there any alternative? Steph, that's not just you. That's to anybody who wants to answer. Oh, silence.
No, I think we'll let Steph go first.
You're going to say that?
I didn't want to just jump in with all of my opinions.
No, you please do.
No, that's why you're here. You're an expert.
You're the expert. Yeah, you're the expert.
So yeah, I do think that Help to Buy is definitely a loss to the market in terms of supporting those first-time buyers onto the property market. There has been conversation recently, is Help to Buy going to return? What would that look like? If it were to return, personally, I'm a supporter of it returning, but under a different guise. So potentially not just on the new build space, because ultimately I think that those new build property prices were just underpinned. It's like a 2-bed flat, sort of anywhere in London was automatically 600,000, no matter what the other property prices in the area were. So I think if it was open to more property types, that would be better in terms of supporting first-time buyers onto the ladder. The other schemes which they've recently come out with, especially on the new build side, like the deposit and lock, for example, so the 5% deposit, 95% mortgage, again supporting that new build space and not the older properties. I think that we are needing to support the older property, sort of the non-new build space more, because that helps more people. Because if first-time buyers are able to buy those properties, that then means that those people have the opportunity to upsize and move, and it just helps the whole market to flow. Whereas if you are only supporting properties in the new build space, you're underpinning a lot of developments. And we do obviously need new properties to be built, because there is still a lack of housing. But I think more innovation in terms of the old properties is definitely needed. Deposit and unlock, as I've mentioned, I think it's a great idea, but we haven't seen a huge amount of developers sign up to it, because I think the cost to them is quite significant. And new builds generally are sold at a bit of a premium anyway. And we still have the affordability issue with first-time buyers needing to then get a 95% mortgage.
Tony, I'm going to come to you for a second, because I want to pick apart something Steph just said, and she's absolutely right. All these schemes focus on new build homes. We just recently done a podcast regarding green mortgages and saying that, it's about time green mortgages were put onto improving housing stock, as opposed to giving people a pat on the back for buying an A or B rated home. We have got the worst housing stock possibly in the world, but certainly in the developed world, our housing stock is absolutely awful. Shouldn't these schemes, as Steph said, these schemes should be focused on older buildings as well, shouldn't they? Should be incentivizing people. Like, we were saying about green mortgages, talking about improving that home. Are green mortgages available to first-time buyers? Is part one of what I want to ask. And secondly, do you agree with Steph? Do we need to be focusing these products on our existing stock?
Yes, we do. There's more existing stock than there is new build. So, the focus has always been on building a new one, because that's easier, isn't it? Because the construction's there, you've got the material, it's all in, you're not having to retrofit and rip stuff out. So that's where the focus needs to be. We know that. We know that we've got an aging housing stock. A lot of it coming up to 100, 120 years old in terms of Victorian and places like that, where they're not fit, but they are the opportunity for first-time buyers to move into a lot of those. And so we need to look at an awful lot of stuff. I think there was I haven't read the article, but the headline yesterday, I think the Family Building Society have put it, saying, what's the actual phrase? The housing policy is a joke or something like that. Bonkers is the headline. The housing policy is bonkers. I haven't read it yet, but I think that kind of sums it up. There's an awful lot we can do. Yeah,
so he was saying that because we've just had so many housing ministers over the past period of time, there's never been the opportunity for an actual new policy for them to actually see it through, because every time something new is announced and then all of a sudden we've got a new housing minister, they come in with a new opinion and everything gets changed and nothing ever gets done. So I think it was Mark Bogard, head of Family Building Society, was talking about actually setting a sort of a housing minister, same as we have a Secretary of State, and making it an actual sort of statutory department, and not just an individual who floats in and out and changes 9 times a year.
And I think, while we're talking politics, but we're in a bit of a weird stage. We've got a general election looming. There's a lot of other things going on. We haven't really seen anything coming out of the housing area of the government yet, and I don't think we're likely to. So I think these aspirations we might have that the government's going to step in and do something, add a new policy, I think we might be waiting until the end of next year before we really know what's going to happen. And Steph, as you just said, the change in policy, if we actually change government, then we've got to then wait for them to get their feet under the table and get an idea of the state we're in. So we might have been a bit limbo. So I think we need to just look at what we've got now. One thing I want to pick out while we're talking about governments, the Welsh government's offering a loan to help the cost of a new build home. Again, it's another scheme on a new build home, but it's not been adopted by England yet. Should it be? Tony?
I'm honestly, I'm not aware of the scheme.
Okay.
I shall hold my hands up. So you know more than me, Jay, on this one. So
I'm just going to go out the room. And
you
come
may
back
be,
in and see
you may be,
I know I am.
You may be surprised by that. There's millions that aren't. So,
so basically, Steph, are you aware that the Welsh government are offering a loan to help the Valley?
So I think it's just basically Help to Buy. They're essentially just continuing with the Help to Buy.
Right. Okay.
It's got slightly different caveats to it, but yeah, I think it's very similar, isn't it? It's because it's focused on the Help to Buy. Is it? I mean, I presume it's partisan politics, the reason that the Welsh government have kept it and the English government perhaps have dropped it. But it does have a bit more of a kind of. It seems to have more marketing than Help to Buy ever got. I think in Wales, everyone sort of is aware of it. So I think there's an opportunity for England to look at it and say, well, is this working? I'll be interested to see. I guess you guys aren't aware, but I'll be quite interested to see, and I might do some research on it to see how effective it is and see how many people are using it in Wales, because something to come back on.
I think, Jay, before we move on, one of the things I was just thinking is there is, that's just proof of, I'm just sorry. Holly is desperately trying to get back online for us all, everybody. Her internet is completely crashed. So she will be, she wasn't bored. She will be back with us as soon as possible. She's just messaging me now. I think there's an opportunity because there's so many schemes. It's very hard to keep track of them all. So I don't know how, respect to advisors, how can you do that and know what's available to you? Because there's so many around that there almost needs to be a register of schemes or something that is available that people can look at, from a broking perspective, but also just from a consumer perspective. Because the one thing we haven't talked about, but is passionate for us, is around the development of the custom build market to support new builders, okay? And how many new first-time buyers are aware that there are opportunities to build your own first home, very well supported by an enabling developer and supported by a local council that's creating land for you. So I think there just needs to be this, almost in line with Steph's point about a clear strategy of who is the housing minister and what do they do and where do you go. There needs to be this list of, this is what's available. And then we can at least pick through that list and support the first time buyer to do so.
I have to say, for the broker audience that are watching, just trying to research questions to put to the panel today, as Tony just said, I found it almost impossible to find all the schemes in one place. It was impossible. There's an area on the Gov website, by all means it was there. I'm not saying it's not, but there was a list of 3 schemes with no links. I couldn't find any information. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, hoping to God these guys knew what I was talking about. But yeah, I agree. I think a central resource for brokers especially, I think, is really key. And we say this all the time, don't we, Tony, that education for brokers has to be a focus for lenders. And actually it goes back to some of the comments we get in the chat rooms on a regular basis of people saying, well, it varies, criteria varies and situations vary between different lenders. It is really up to the lenders to get that information out to our brokers. Hi, welcome back, Holly.
Sorry, I just cannot trust my internet connection, and it's failed me today. So yeah.
Well, you're back now. It's fine. You did miss. You did miss quite a lot actually, but you did miss too much. Yeah. I'm just going to go to Max. Tony, have you read Max's comment in the chat? Can you just have a quick read for me? I'll come to you in a second about it. But Holly, we were just talking about the schemes and what's available from the government as a scheme for first-time buyers, and actually having nowhere to direct people where all the schemes are listed. I don't know if it's a resource that anyone on the panel's aware of, but as I was saying, I was researching. I was finding it quite difficult to find the schemes that are active now, or I was finding schemes that were deactivated last year. So Steph, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I keep my trusty Excel spreadsheet as up to date as possible, but there's so many schemes which come, and they like the first home schemes, and that was sort of announced a few years ago, and actually the amount of properties available on it is just so minimal. So it's like, okay, be aware of it, but we don't need to know sort of the full ins and outs of it, because it's so rare that we ever see that. And there's so many little things that get announced and never take.
Yeah.
Never get
headline grabbers, as we were talking about.
It is something I'm going to, my thoughts is something I'm going to take away and look as us as a lender, how can we provide that content? You know, we provide a lot of guides on self-build and things like that, but actually guide to first-time buying and all the options. I think that's something that I will take away, speak to my colleagues in marketing about how do we do that? How do we support and educate?
Let's give Tony some help, guys. You guys in the audience, in the chat room, put in there what you would like from a lender, what you think a lender should be giving you to help you with first-time buyers, and we can use that. We keep all the chat logs, so we can use that to help develop. And as Tony has conversations internally at Saffron, and I'm sure if I share it with Steph, she can share it with other people. But yeah, put your comments there. Tell us what you want to know, what you think is missing, what you think lenders should do, and let's start building a momentum for first-time buyers and for brokers, and little resources you can give to your customers or just be aware of, so you're knowledgeable when somebody comes to you with a case that's slightly different. Tony, did you get a chance to look at Max's comment?
Yeah, Max, so there's a few bits in there. That the help to buy bit, I shall be truly honest, I've never worked with a lender that's had help to buy, so I'm not an expert in that part of the market and the challenges around it, so I will defer to my colleagues on the panel. With regard to the 95%, yeah, you're spot on. You do know where you stand. And yes, one of the challenges is landlords are buying new build properties, because that solves the EPC challenge for them with the older stock. So I get that, because a lot of that old stock is actually not commercially viable to retrofit, which is a challenge in itself. So it's getting back out onto the market for then somebody who cannot then take advantage of environmentally friendly and green mortgages because the house just doesn't fit it. So I get it. It's a challenge all round.
Can I just chuck in another? Sorry, I don't mean to be slamming the government, because that's not what we're here to do. But just, there is so many conversations. A lot of their pitches for, you know, their upcoming legislations in their general election pitch is about reducing legislation on housing and reducing some of the red tape that we've got. So with a bit of luck, some of these houses will be much easier once we're able to do it. But as I say, at the moment, it's so restricted. And I think, you know, and I agree. I mean, if I was a buy-to-let landlord, I would do just that. You know, it's just a simpler move. Anyway, we haven't got long left. We've only got about 8 minutes. So please do pop your comments in the chat room, anything that you would like to discuss, and we'll go from there. Let's talk property prices, Steph, because you brought that up in your side. Lovely story, went everywhere that May was the biggest drop in house prices we've had since, was it 15 years? Or was it longer than that? I can't remember. But we do this every time. It's like get out the crystal ball moment. What's going to happen with property prices? Are we going to see a trend of this, or actually is it just an industry blip, as we see often?
I'm gonna say I think there's just so much. There's been a lot of talk about a property market crash, because that sells headlines. Like, it's exciting, it's clickbait, people want to click into it and read about it, and then getting into the detail of it, it's month by month. I think we're more than likely looking at sort of a minor correction rather than anything to do with the house price crash. We've survived a number of massive events in terms of the property market. So we've recently had Brexit, we've had the pandemic. The property prices didn't crash after that. So yes, inflation is high now. Bank of England base rate has been increasing, but we've survived sort of two massive events in terms of the economy, and I don't think we're going to see this crash or bubble burst because of the high inflation or the high interest rates. As Tony said earlier, there's still a massive lack of housing stock. People still need to buy. People are still having babies, needing to upsize, getting married, etc. So there will always be a demand, and until sort of housing targets are hit, there will continue to be a lack of demand, and that will keep prices stable, in my opinion.
And it's housing stock, isn't it, Tony? We just need to build more goddamn houses, don't we? I think this is the big issue here.
Yeah, it is. It is as simple as that, But to the point that you made, Jay, the government isn't going to do that. So it's in the hands of the private, the public sector, or the private sector, to kind of make those decisions for them and utilize the legislation that is available in the right to build stuff and all the other local authority legislation, which is freeing up land, and start building stuff.
We just talk about that just on the right to build, Tone, because we talk often about self-build. You mentioned earlier self-build and custom build. I think a lot of brokers might not be aware that you will accept first-time builders, as in first-time buyers building their first home, won't you?
I will look to Holly for that, just to confirm.
Holly nodded. I think she saved that.
That's fine. Pick me. I know this one. Self build. We do look to consider first time buyers on that as well. So they don't need to have any previous property experience or building experience for that. We can help them with our self build product. It's looking at what project they're looking to do, affordability, whether that fits, but also like who's project managing it, what building contractors and everything like that. But we can help first time buyers that they want to build their property, which might actually be able to get them a bigger footprint in the house because of how they've managed to build it. So instead of buying a ready-made new build, they've actually able to build a 5-bedroomed house for the price of what they would have bought a new build for, or slightly less. So there's that option. Self-build could be a good option if they are looking to build something that's bigger than what they could afford as a ready-made.
With custom build now in the right to build legislation. So I think those of you would listen to our webinar when we had the Peter and Andrew from NAXPA on, we're talking about custom build and local authorities adopting the percentage build policy. So on new build sites, there's now, I think 40 councils have already adopted it, 50 have it in progress, and the rest have still got to make their mind up. But that's saying a percentage of that site has to be sent over to custom build. Okay. Now, the beauty of that is that's getting a house on an established site, but having the choice to not just being given the 3 options the builder gives you, but having the choice to broaden that option or potentially just build the house that you want, enabled by that builder. So there's so many opportunities outside of just waiting for a new house there. That's the kind of stuff, again, in this super guide that I'm now thinking about that will, God, I'm in trouble if I don't deliver this. That's going to make all these options available. But there is a lot more than most people realise.
I agree. We're going to go to Marion just while we've still got Steph on, because this is a topic that we discuss on a regular basis. If lenders could approve affordability for self-employed, sole traders, limited company directors, there's a big gap between employed and self-employed. Now, we can plug like crazy, so we'll come to Tony in a minute, but let's go to Steph first on a market-wide thing. It's true, though, isn't it? I mean, we've looked at this, and we've looked at this in a lot of detail, and that is a big issue.
It is a massive issue. So sort of reversing back to my point earlier about those higher loan to income multiples being given to certain earners or certain loan to values, it also generally seems to be focused on giving it to PAYE people rather than those who are self-employed. So they're sort of being penalised in a way for having their own business. And I mean, we're in 2023 now, so people should be able to, if they've got their accounts for the most recent year, they're sort of the non-COVID accounts. So things are getting back to normal post-COVID, and so their trading should be getting back to normal. And I definitely think that lenders do need to look and just understand the self-employed market a little bit better. I think it's mainly a lack of understanding, not necessarily that they don't want to, but perhaps it's generally they see it as higher risk, and if you don't understand the ins and outs of an individual's business, then that's why they're not getting the higher loan to income multiples. So I agree with Marianne, and also just more innovation needed in terms of what income can be used. So let's not just look at salary and dividends, let's look at net profits, let's look at contractors. I'm sure there's plenty that Saffron can plug.
I was about to say, just wrote up the article yesterday, but let's go to Tony, just to pick apart some of those. And what
the one thing is, this issue is not new. This issue has been there since housing was invented. Do you know what I mean? There's always been this inequality between the employed and the self-employed. The actual affordability assessment's the same, just to stress that. It's just the multiple that you can borrow against. So a lot of lenders will cap it. We actually will lend up to 90% for someone in 1 year's trading. So actually we're not at that LTV level. But it is about understanding the self-employed, and we've just commissioned a study which we'll be publishing soon, and we actually went and spoke to not the broker but the actual self-employed consumer to get their understanding of their world and their challenges. And it's actually, I won't spoil it because I might get the stats wrong, but there's some quite eye-opening stats there that as lenders and as brokers we can all learn from and understand how we manage our businesses. But from our perspective, I believe, and hopefully Holly agree, that we're a champion for the self-employed. Our lending policy has probably evolved more around self-employed and contractor than any other area in the last 18 months. That's how important it is to us. We do take a flexible approach. We will take the latest year's figures. In fact, we take that as standard unless there's a huge blip, and then we may question. But even if it's a huge increase, we can still do those cases because we understand the backstory behind it. So it's about finding a lender that is prepared to look at the complexity of someone who's self-employed and take into account the levels of income. The high street is not great at that. It's not their model. That's why you need to come to lenders like Saffron and other specialist lenders or other building societies that really focus in this area.
That's really key. Holly, it's interesting that. Just to pick up on Brian's point, because this is very fair, and just as a comment, but it's interesting the employed person of a self-employed trader is treated differently. Yet the employed person's job is not as much more secure than the actual person. Question from me, and this might sound like a dumb question, but remember I don't work in the market, so nobody roll your eyes at me. How does that work with IR35 for the businesses that have to run as a limited company? Couldn't they just say there was an employee and lie? I presume you do your diligence on that and will know that they're a company director. And find out. Just because it seemed like to me, it seems like a ridiculous loophole because you're paid PAYE, or you can pay yourself at a decent rate and just not declare. So tell me where the due diligence comes in there.
My guess would be your due diligence will be around Companies House and finding out, your associations on Companies House and how you're listed. That's where we're going to find that information. I mean, with the self-employed affordability, we haven't quite touched on that with Saffron, is that if they're a 50% limited company director, we can look at net profit after tax and salary for affordability, which was an enhancement we made probably about 3 or 4 months ago. Nice. So they used to be 100% limited company director. We could look at net profit after tax and salary, but actually we've reduced it now. They only need to be a 50% shareholder in order to do that. So that's another way we've helped try to boost affordability with this. Yeah. So yeah.
I think, look, another key one, another shameless plug is around contractor, and I can say that because Steph mentioned contractor. That look, we recognise how the world's changed since COVID and how the gig economy has evolved and people do stuff. So we only need someone to have 3 months contracting experience before we can look at them, and they don't even have to have experience in that market. As long as they've got 2 years working and they're contracting maybe in a different avenue, that doesn't matter. We don't mind. It's just that consistency of working. And we can actually consider day one contractors in the right circumstances. So if Steph, for example, went contracting now with all her years of experience in this market, we'd be stupid not to continue and say, yeah, from day one. So that's the kind of flexible approach that we take, and we continually evolve. And in fact, in the next couple of weeks, you'll see a big change again in our policies. We've done a complete review of our criteria, and we're about to roll out some big changes, particularly in the self-employed market. So keep an eye on those.
Interesting plug that I actually didn't set up, which is nice. Right, Steph, we've kept you 5 minutes longer than we should have done because the conversation was just flowing. But just for the sake of the other brokers in, there might be some people with lesser experience than you. I presume you're open to people following on LinkedIn, connecting, and as an expert, there might be some brokers who've got some additional questions. So, is that okay? So they can get you on LinkedIn and chat to you there, maybe.
Of course, yes, definitely.
Well, Steph, just from me and Tony and Holly, I'm sure, thank you so much for joining us today. Your opinions were really, really helpful. I'm sure the audience will agree as well. And if we don't speak to you before, good luck with the baby.
Yes.
And maternity leave. And do put some pictures on LinkedIn. We'll all want to see them.
Please do.
And thank you so much. From all of us, thank you, Steph. And we'll speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thanks all. Goodbye.
Thanks, Steph. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right. While we're here, we're not disappearing yet for another 10 minutes, but we're just going to answer specific questions in regards to products, criteria, cases you may have open. But before we do that, this is you kind of half stole my thunder here a bit, Tony, in that I was going to use this period to talk about the self-employed changes. And is there anything you didn't mention while Steph was with us, just to take that any further? Because I know that these things are coming. Is there anything you can give or you're allowed to give to the audience that's coming up?
Probably best to wait.
Just so
which is
everyone
unlike
knows.
me. It shows that I am growing as a person. I'm developing, and not
Because
saying
normally
stuff I shouldn't.
Afterwards.
Exactly. Exactly.
So just so everyone knows, our next webinar is on the 4th of July. For the first time ever, we're going to be live on LinkedIn rather than on this platform. So we're going to live on LinkedIn. He says with such optimism. So there will be a new way of signing up. It will be an event on LinkedIn via the Saffron for Intermediaries page. So can I ask you to Google or pop onto LinkedIn now? Just go Saffron for Intermediaries and just follow the page, because that's where you're going to get updates on SFI Live from now. And we will still email you. I'll still email you my random emails you get from me to remind you to sign up. So don't worry, that's there. Any questions you got for Holly and Tony, just pop them in now. You said Holly and Phil. That's really wrong, isn't it? Holly and Tony. And I literally see I bit my tongue with what we're doing. Anyway, so look out for us on the 4th. That is going to be on the self-employed, 100% of the self-employed. We will announce our guests really, really quickly. Just want to go right back to the start, actually, because Jan, is it Jan putting a question? Yeah. What will you offer a buy-to-let mortgage to a first-time buyer that is not the owner-occupier, Holly?
Yes, definitely. So all our buy-to-let products are first-time buyer, first-time landlords. Currently, minimum income requirement is 25,000. With a first-time buyer, we will be cautious with their income, just to ensure that we feel that they can cover rental voids and property maintenance, as well as fund their own lifestyle, just so it's responsible lending for somebody that's not managed a property before. But yeah, that's the only sort of extra checks I say we would do. But yeah, it's across our range. So expat buy-to-lets, standard buy-to-lets, and limited company buy-to-lets. So yes.
There you go. So yes, that is possible, Jan. I hope that answers your question. Any more questions, do pop them in the chat room. Just quickly then, on anything new from Saffron, Holly, I'm going to come to you first. As you know,
there's a statement from Brian that I think we should pick up on, which is on the CIS scheme, which particularly in the construction. So I'll have a go, and Holly will jump in, because I will probably get this wrong. But CIS, where we differ in the market is that we actually don't treat them as they're self-employed. So we treat them almost as though they're a PAYE. But I'll let Holly explain this is the point where our internet dies on us again. I'll let Holly explain how our policy on CIS works.
Yeah, so we can consider CIS workers, and unfortunately my internet's still not working, so my little background notes won't be there. But yeah, so we can consider them. We actually put them on our contractor product range, and we would need to see 6 months bank statements, 6 months pay slips for a CIS worker, and then we'll average out their income that way, rather than doing like our contractor, which is day rate times days work times 48. So it just varies with our CIS workers, but we can consider, but it would be on the contracting range up to 90%.
And that's one of the enhancements we're making in the next few weeks, which will see that 6 month set of figures would drop down as well. But I'll wait for it to come out before we talk.
I raised an eyebrow and I thought you were going to slip then. I was waiting for it. No, you didn't do it. You didn't do it. I'm waiting for the slip up. Right. So Just guys, we're going to finish off in just a second. Just to let you know, I have popped your CPD certificate into your chat room, so you can download that now. Download straight to your system. Just look in your download folder, just for your CPD points. And over to Holly, contact details for anyone that's got a case, maybe wants to discuss it with you, and a case with you in confidence or one of the team. How can you get in touch?
Yeah, so you have 3 points of contact. You have our intermediary support team, and they can be contacted on 01799582925. You then have the wonderful telephone BDMs. You've got Sophie, Lizzie, and Debbie, and their contact details can be found on the BDM Finder tool on the website, which is the contact us section. And again, then you have our 4 incredible field-based BDMs, and again, their mobile numbers and email addresses can be found on our website too, under the BDM Finder. You can also reach out to us on LinkedIn. We are quite actively posting. We've had lots of notifications this morning. Our lovely field-based BDMs are out on the road at various events. But yeah, follow us on there. You'll see any updates, especially with the new policy stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll all be shouting about it.
Please do. So that website, so Holly broke up a little bit there, so I don't know if you actually gave the website up, but the website is saffronforintermediaries.co.uk. So pop onto there, and BDM Finder is on the contact page. Just look for the BDM Finder, because I think the local BDM bit is your little selling point there, in that you can find the field-based BDM that's local to you, so you can arrange meetings, have a direct contact, and that one-on-one. Tony, just talking about your BDM team. Something we haven't mentioned is how much you've developed them over the last. So some people on here that haven't joined us for a little while.
Yeah,
you developed them extensively since they would have seen it.
Exactly. Well, look, we've gone from 2 to 14 in the last 2 years. So as I said, Holly's mentioned them. We've got four on the roads. We got 3 on the phones, and that's growing very soon. It's going to be another one coming there. On the telephone, phone, and then we've got the intermediate support team, which is taking all the calls in. And if you want to contact us on the phone, on a live chat, or by email, those are the guys that will speak to you, and they're amazing. They know everything. So please do get in touch. One thing we didn't mention is, if you want to know about all our lovely developments, the easiest way to find out is register, because we will then email you and keep you in touch. So if you're not registered, I'd suggest you do that. Go into the top right hand corner of the website, click on register. It's fairly straightforward from there. And then once it's in, Holly and the intermediate support team will make sure that you are registered in good speed.
There we go. And you won't get spammed, don't panic. But you do, by registering, you will learn about it. You won't have to wait for my emails about SFI Lives. You will get updates about SFI Lives that are coming forward. As I say, we're moving them onto LinkedIn, which means that when they're on demand, they're immediately on demand. So we'll do a live hour, and then it'll be on demand immediately on the Saffron for Intermediaries LinkedIn page. So please go in and please do connect with them, just so you get those updates. And I will be sending them out on my personal LinkedIn, as I know Holly and Tony will do it as well. I need it again. Holly and Tony will do as well. I am not. And I've been watching the news constantly. I'm a PR person. I watch the news every day, and it's the top story every day. So it's a great one. So just thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And we're back on the 4th of July, and it will be on LinkedIn, but I will email you how to get in touch with the Saffron team and everything from my emails, and they will still keep coming from me as well as Saffron. So if you do miss Saffron, you'll get mine, and vice versa. But I think that's it from us today. Again, saffronforintermediaries.co.uk, Saffron for Intermediaries on LinkedIn. It's your 2 vocal points, and get in touch with the guys. I'm sure they'll be able to help. And we hope you enjoyed today. So from us, it's a goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks. Bye.